Hi.
Hello.
Today, much more interesting news.
Let's go.
The most famous scientist in the world, and he was treated by Hitler. The Greek philosopher, Aristotle, had said that there are basically techniques to persuade people. Ethos, pathos, logos. I'll give an example of car. Suppose I have to sell the car. Ethos means that I will establish my authority. I will tell you to buy this car, because of trust between the brand and the buyer. So you should buy it. Logos means hypercar and supercars rely on the stats to sell. And, finally, pathos, that I'll use emotions to persuade you. Pathos means that would make people feel really good about themselves if they bought the car, because in their eyes, it's a win-win. This is why you should buy this car. This is why a dictator has to rely on pathos or emotions to get people to vote for him. If you love your country, vote for me. If you respect your soldiers, vote for me. Many people are convinced by these emotional speeches. But, when a logical person hears these, he'll ask, more than 25,000 books were burnt by the Nazi Party officials. They called the books un-German or anti-national. They had tried to ban several books before. Under Hitler's Germany, there used to be bonfire events. Books of almost every type.
It had Marxist literature, books on psychology, liberalism and democracy. Books that were written by Jewish people, foreigners, books on art, theater, physiology.
Almost every type of books, the Nazi Party believed, went against their party. And dictatorship was burned. The Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels justified this by saying that the future German man will not be just a man of books but of characters, but also a man of character. At this time, such articles were being published that tried to demoralize logic completely. Like, pure reason was all too human and dangerous, and contrary to nature, when applied to real life.
Pseudoscience was also largely prevalent. Dubious research papers were being published,
which stated that the Germans were of a superior race,
that their blood was pure and the other human races were in a subhuman category, inferior to them. So-called inventor in Austria once saw the moon and dreamed that the moon might be made of ice, because it looks white. So, he said that the whole universe, including all other planets, must be made of ice.
The universe is made of ice.
He published his theory titled World Ice Theory.
The Nazi government also gave an honorary doctorate to this so-called inventor.
In this situation, all the intellectuals in the country, historians, professors and scientists, they were being oppressed.
University and colleges are the only places in the country where logic is heavily discussed.
The universities were being tightly controlled by the Nazi Party.
In this situation, all the intellectuals in the country, historians, professors and scientists, they were being oppressed.
University and colleges are the only places in a country where logic is heavily discussed.
The universities were being tightly controlled by the Nazi Party, to the extent that the senior university professors, top universities professors, were appointed by the Nazi Party.
The subjects taught in their universities were also strictly limited to furthering Nazi ideology.
If it wasn't adhered to, the professors of the universities were terminated.
In such cases, there were very few people who were brave enough to speak out.
The most famous scientist in the world, Albert Einstein. Einstein had openly and publicly criticized Hitler's party. After Hitler came into power, he decided to resign from his job as a mark of protest.
He was in the Prussian Academy of Science, Berlin. He resigned from the job.
And even said that he wants to leave the country.
He also said that he wants to give up this German citizenship.
That he didn't want to remain a citizen of a country where equality wasn't practiced.
During this time, the puppet media in Germany was bought off by Hitler.
relentlessly defamed Einstein.
Baseless news was published against him, and caricatures were published of him with a nose like a Jew's.
How the Jews were defamed and criticized in Nazi Germany.
Not only this, the officials of the Nazi Party in Berlin burnt the scientific research papers of Einstein.
Some newspaper also claimed that Einstein was plotting against the country with the communists.
Albert Einstein was made to be the #1 public enemy of the country,
as if he were the biggest traitor at the time. The Nazi propaganda minister, Goebbels, had printed a photo of Einstein with the words "not yet hanged" as the title.
It goes to show that there was a threat to his life.
This is why he left Germany and went to Belgium.
There he got security from the Belgian royal family from the threat to his life.
On August 30, 1933, Einstein's philosopher friend Theodor Lessing was murdered by Nazi extremists, and the people who murdered him were lauded in Germany.
How England helped Albert Einstein escape Nazi Germany.
They were immediately and immensely honored for their action.
Immediately after this, the newspaper asked if Einstein was next.
There was even a financial reward announced to anyone who would kill Einstein.
Oh! Einstein had to leave Belgium and seek refuge in England.
He took refuge in a rural area. 24*7 There were English bodyguards with him,
in case a Nazi spy reached England to kill him. And Einstein wrote his unified field theory in a no-name rural village of England,
which we study today.
Another famous technique of Hitler was to create fear among the Germans, to create fake enemy of the country that did not even exist, that as a base to scare the citizens,
and to portray himself as the hero who would save the country from these non-existent enemies.
Conspiracy theories were created and dubious news was spread, showing the Jews to be responsible for the defeat of Germany in World War I. Such propaganda posters were printed.
The Jews were responsible for Germany losing in World War I and economic crushing.
This was not true, because there were 1 lakh Jews in the German military.
More than 12,000 were martyred in the war.
When the Nazi Party spoke about socialism, the Jews were blamed for capitalism.
When the Nazi Party spoke about socialism, the Jews were blamed for capitalism.
That the Jews were the moneylenders who hoarded all the money among themselves. But in the later year, when the Nazi Party started taking funds from the corporates,
started practicing crony capitalism themselves,
then the Jews were blamed for communism, capitalism, for losing the war, and also the collapse of the economy.
The first was that all media was completely in the hands of Hitler.
The media showed the same news.
The citizens had no other source of news, so they believed in it.
The second reason is that the unemployment was high, the economy was at a low,
and poverty was increasing, so the people started believing these things.
The second strategy of Hitler was to portray himself as the Messiah,
who would be the savior to save the country. In 1923, a biography was written on Hitler.
In this biography, Hitler was compared to Jesus Christ,
that he was the person who would save Germany.
It was later found out that this biography was written by Hitler himself.
He compared himself to Jesus Christ.
But, while publishing the book, he used the name of his friend.
It was later revealed that Hitler had praised himself.
2 years later, Hitler wrote his autobiography Mein Kampf.
The 18th of July 1925, the book contained many outright lies.
He claimed that he came from a poor family and had to do physical labor.
But it was later revealed that it was all a lie and he had never done any physical labor in his life.
The media also portrayed him as a messiah.
In the 1930s elections, the ballot card did not have the name of Nazi Party.
Instead, they had the name Hitler Movement written on them.
Where did these funds come from?
Hitler used to get large corporate funding. All of the renowned German company that you know today.
Volkswagen, BMW, Kodak, Siemens, Nestle, Fanta, Ford, and all these companies funded Hitler.
These companies paid compensatory funds to the Lewis families,
who had escaped Hitler's era and survived till now.
In India, many people were inspired by Hitler according to him, Hindutva was a political ideology, where the Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jains were included, and the Muslims and Christians were outsiders.
Jews were compared to the Muslims in India.
Now, many people use the words Hinduism and Hindutva interchangeably.
Then Hinduism and Hindutva have a word of difference between them.
Hinduism is an ideology that believes in the motto that the whole world is a family.
On the other hand, the Hindutva ideology depicts superiority.
That same people are superior and others inferior.
Some in the circle and other outsiders who are beneath them.
Chaudhry Rahmat Ali, who wanted a separate country for Muslims.
He believed that Muslims were superiors to other.
Such ideologies were repeatedly seen time and again throughout history.
Another example for India is Golwakar. He had openly showed his appreciation for Nazi ideology.
Iranian dictators had portrayed the Western countries as inferior to them.
There were people in Pakistan that depicted the Ahmadi minority to be inferior to themselves.
Another interesting fact about Savarkar is that
it was written by a person named Chitragupta.
In this book, Savarkar was heavily praised.
In 1987, when this book was republished, the publisher revealed that
Chitragupta wasn't anyone other than Savarkar himself. It's the same as what Hitler did.